Shabbat Shalom. This is Larry Mitchell with Friends of Israel. This morning we are continuing the background for the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah. You know, Friends of Israel of Canada does a tour every year. This year it's been postponed until the fall because of COVID. But when we go on the tour, we normally stop at the ruins of Modim, which is the birthplace, the hometown of the Maccabees. And it's where the events of Hanukkah begin to take place when Matthias defies the orders by Antiochus Epiphanes to sacrifice a pig and to eat pork. And this becomes the basis for the Feast of Dedication, which Jesus participated in John chapter 10, verse 22. Last lesson we looked at how the children of Israel were being divided into two camps. We had the Pharisees, which are the pious ones, who wanted to disregard anything that was Greek, and the Sadducees, who were more secular, wanted to embrace the Greek culture, the Greek philosophy, and so you have a conflict growing. That conflict would come to a head with the death of Onias III, the high priest. Onias III was replaced by his brother, who had changed his name from Yeshua, the same name as Jesus, to the name Jason. And he secularized much of the Jewish practices during his leadership as high priest. But eventually he would be replaced by a much despised and hated high priest, personally appointed by Antiochus Epiphanes. His name was Menelaus. And Menelaus was totally secular. He hated the Jewish God, he hated the Jewish religion, and he was rejected by the Pharisees. And so Menelaus hated tremendously by the Jewish people. And things really came to a head when the Egyptians, which had been conquered by Antiochus the Great, decided to rebel against Antiochus Epiphanes. Antiochus Epiphanes, his name means God manifested in the flesh, took an army into Egypt to crush the rebellion. Eventually he wound up putting the Egyptian rebels in a siege at Alexandria. And he was preparing to do battle with the rebels when all of a sudden there came a ship from Cyprus. On that ship was a man called Linnaeus. He was a Roman ambassador. And Linnaeus came up to Antiochus Epiphanes, and he took a stick and drew a circle around Antiochus Epiphanes, and he asked him, "Are you going to attack Alexandria and declare war on Rome, or are you going to go home?" Antiochus Epiphanes understood he did not have the military might to fight against Rome, and being greatly humiliated, he went home, started the trip back to Syria. That trip would take him through Jerusalem. Now, meanwhile, back in Israel, rumor had spread that Antiochus the Great, or Antiochus Epiphanes, had been killed in battle. The Jewish people began to rejoice. they chased Menelaus out of town, and when they did that, Antiochus Epiphanes was just marching into Jerusalem. Antiochus Epiphanes had enough of these stiff-necked and rebellious Jewish people and decided he was going to teach them a lesson once and for all. It was his birthday on the 25th of Kislev, or the 25th of December, if you want to put that into Gentile times. And so he erected an image of himself inside the temple, and he sacrificed a pig, and he began to force Jewish people to start eating pork. Many of the Jewish people, especially the Hellenists, had no problem eating pork, but many of the more pious, the Pharisees, took a stand. And one of the ones who took a stand was Matthias Maccabee. And in the town of Modim, Matthias stole the sword from the Roman or the Syrian soldier. He slew the soldier, and he made the proclamation, "Whoever is zealous for the Lord, let him follow me." The Jewish people were greatly persecuted during this time. In the book of Maccabees, we read about a story of Hannah and her 7 sons who were mercilessly tortured by Antiochus Epiphanes. They are mentioned in the book of Hebrews 11, 35 and 36. Women received their dead raised to life again, and others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. And others had trials of cruel mockings and scourging, yea, moreover of bonds and imprisonment. Now, the prophecy concerning the story of the Maccabees and Antiochus Epiphanes is found in the book of Daniel, Daniel chapter 11, 30 to 36. And just let me read verse 30 and verse 33 to 34. Daniel 11:30. For the ships of Chitham, and that is the old name for Cyprus, shall come against him, Antiochus Epiphanes, and therefore he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the holy covenant. So shall he do, and he shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant. And then verses 33 and 34, and they that understand among the people shall instruct many. Yet they shall fall by the sword, and by flame, and by captivity, and by spoil, many days. Now when they shall fall, they shall be helped with a little help, but many shall cleave to them with flatteries. And some of them of understanding shall fall, to try them, and to purge, and to make them white, even to the end of the time, because it is yet for a time appointed. And the king shall do according to his will. He shall exalt and multiply himself above every god, and shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, and shall prosper until the indignation be accomplished, for that which is determined shall be done. Antiochus Epiphanes becomes a foreshadow of the coming Antichrist. Your Friends of Israel has a book that's written by Dr. Rennie Showers. It's called The Most High God. And if you really would like to find a lot more detail of the historical and biblical story of the Maccabees and the Antichrist, you can go to our website and you can order the book The Most High God by Rennie Showers. And we just thank you for joining us today. Next week we will look a little bit more about the background of Hanukkah. And then in a couple of weeks we're going to see Jesus during the feast of Hanukkah. This is Larry Mitchell with Friends of Israel. Shabbat Shalom.